Hi. So I thought I'd do a follow-up on my blog post that I wrote about my depression for the last, forever. But specifically the last couple of years, it's been quite bad. And if you remember, I told you that I've been going to see a therapist who agreed with me that it was time I went to see a psychiatrist to talk about what possible medication I should start taking to kind of help me out, since everything else that I was doing right wasn't cutting it. So I did that, and it was very surprising what came out of that. But I wanted to share it with everyone, and I wanted to share it in a very real way, and I'm having a little trouble gathering my thoughts at the moment for writing them down, so I thought I'd just talk it out. To get straight to it, is that the psychiatrist said that he strongly believed that I have something called type 2 bipolar disorder, and that he suspects that I have something called rapid cycling type 2 bipolar disorder, which was a huge surprise to me, because the only thing I know of bipolar disorder is basically, kind of how Richard Gere portrays it in Mr. Jones, where he's like on top of the world, defying gravity 1 second and completely suicidal the next. And while my depressions get quite severe, I kind of turn towards apathy more than suicide thoughts. I have thoughts of running away from it and not coming back, but not thoughts of dying. Or maybe I've always kind of attributed that to my faith and knowing that it wouldn't solve anything, and I just go living beyond that. So I always wonder if I hadn't had my faith, that I possibly would have been suicidal, but that's something I'll never know, I guess. But I've certainly never had those crazy manic highs where, you go and do crazy things like have promiscuous sex and go on spending sprees and, really put yourself at risk. I have periods where I feel very energized and very kind of on top of things, and I feel very organized, and I feel like I can tackle anything, and I feel very good about myself, like really, really good about myself. But I've always felt like these down periods kind of dominated my life. So when I went and researched this type 2 bipolar, I kind of learned that it describes pretty much exactly what I go through, which is type 2 bipolar goes through a cycle which is slightly less erratic. It's typified more by the deep lows and the depressive episodes, and then something called hypomanic states in between, which is not as severe as manic episodes, where you go and, risk your life because you feel invincible. But hypomanic literally means less than manic, and so they're basically periods where you just feel really great and feel like you can accomplish anything, and your thoughts just kind of race a million miles a minute, and you get all these ideas, and you want to do all these new projects and start new things and buy new stuff, and but not to the point where you are so out of touch with reality that you would, completely endanger yourself. For me, at least, but in general, I believe that's kind of the case. And then just the depressive states aren't any less as with bipolar 1. They're just there, and they can be quite bad. So that's kind of what he diagnosed me with, and he put me on a mood stabilizer because apparently antidepressants can actually worsen the cycles of bipolarity. So he put me on something called Lamictal, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's supposed to not affect my hypomanic state, but reduce the severity and the duration, I guess, of my depressive states. So I've been on that. It's a kind of a medication that you have to kind of let your body adjust to. You start at a low dose and then kind of cycle up slowly. So I'm still on the lowest dose of it. And you know, if this diagnosis is correct, then I'm currently in a depressive state, which is really depressing me kind of even more than it normally would, because I was in a really positive state when I first started taking the medicine, and I stayed that way for almost 2 weeks. And I guess I was just really, really hoping that it was due to the medication, and that I was one of these people who just started responding to it right away instead of the usual 3 weeks it kind of takes to get into your system. And you know, I instantly got all optimistic and hopeful and excited, and so now I'm kind of having to deal with that. I can't think of the word. This is me. I lose words a lot all the time. Anyway, with that letdown of not staying happy. So, and I wanted to show you what I'm like when I'm like that, and not just show you what I'm like when I'm feeling good, you know, which is when we tend to take pictures of ourselves and tend to show ourselves to people. You know, we tend to do those things when we feel good, and we've showered, done our makeup, you know, dressed up cute, and have confidence. And I don't have any of those things right now. I don't feel very good about myself. I don't feel very confident at all. And I didn't shower today. And I didn't do any makeup. And I just threw on some clothes that looked comfortable rather than cute. Because I know when I get like this, I can hardly deal with any of the stresses of life. And to feel comfortable in my clothes is like the number one important thing that I have, because I need to kind of be able to sit down in a comfortable chair in some comfortable clothes and give my body some love, you know, when and by doing that give my mind some love when I'm feeling so low. So one of the side effects also that getting this diagnosis has had on me is that I've had diagnoses before of ADD, of one doctor a long time, like 15 years ago, said that he suspected I had borderline personality disorder. My last therapist suspected major depression, and every time I get one of these diagnoses and start getting help for it, and even medication, you know, like with the ADD, I started Adderall, and so far every time I would get really excited when I first got the diagnosis, because to me, this thing that I'm living with is like being in this dark room that you kind of have to feel your way around in, and you're constantly bumping into things and you don't really know where anything is, and it's like every time you go to sleep you forget where everything was that you learned the day before. So it's like you're constantly guessing and constantly finding your way. And when somebody gives you a diagnosis, it's like somebody lights a candle in that room and sheds light on these things, and also gives you sight of what the solution would be to getting out of that room. Because if something has a name, it usually comes with a treatment and a way to work with it, and a way to get better, to a degree at least at the very, very least, get relief. And so far, these diagnoses that I've had have not worked out that way. The flame has gone on for a little bit and grown weaker and weaker and weaker and died out, because it turned out it wasn't the right candle. It was a candle that was already almost all the way burned down, or one that had a weak wick, or whatever, and it wasn't the right one and went out and left me back in the dark. So I am just right now praying so hard that I'm not worried about being bipolar. I don't really care about that. I just want this to be the right diagnosis, so that this medication I'm taking for it will help, and I can move on, and I can find some stability in my life and not feel constantly dominated by darkness, basically, and question marks, and not knowing where I am. So yeah, that's where I am right now. Hopeful, but also scared, but taking it one day at a time. Currently not feeling so good, and I just wanted to say thank you also to everybody who reacted to my previous blog post. It was so sweet. I got so many amazing responses, and people who were just kind, and I appreciated that so much. People who shared their own stories that were hard to share, I'm sure, but did it anyway, and it really made me feel really good. And I hope I can be there for you in that way, though I know I'm not a good friend, in the practical sense of the word, because when I get down, this disease wants to isolate me, and wants me to be alone, and wants me to feel ashamed, and wants me to think that nobody would want to be around me when I'm like this, and I'm not strong enough yet to fight that. So I'm really sorry if I have said I wanted to hang out with you and then I never called, or if I said that I was going to do something for you and then never did it. I'm so sorry for things like that, because when I feel good, I feel like I can do those things, no problem, and I want to do them so bad. It's never for lack of sincerity that I say those things, but inevitably I get struck down, and then I can't follow through, and then when I get out of that period again, I feel like it's too late. I feel like people will probably have judged me by then, and I start telling myself all these things. Even though I'm feeling good, I tell myself these things that I should just kind of forget about it and move on. And I'm sorry if that has ever hurt anybody. And please know that it hurts me too, and I'm sorry. Whew. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. Here we go, on to the next bit, and I'm hoping I'm putting all my cards on this medicine right now, which might be a foolish, naive thing to do, but I don't really have any other options, and I'm trying to continue to do what I do to feel better, go out and be outside and go for walks, and I've been going to the gym like every other day and get exercise and try to eat healthy and try to do the little things I know that help. So I'll keep on doing those, and from here on out I guess we'll just see. So thanks for listening, and until the next update.